The microphones are off.
You're live. Well, we put that on there. It should work now.
Okay, here we are. I don't know who the chair of this group is, but I will read if you want. So, okay, welcome to the meeting of the Budget and Grants Committee of Cleveland Community Police Commission. It is Monday, June 17th, 2024, 2 p.m. Kate Kennedy?
Present.
Pete Van Leer is present, and we have a quorum. John Adams, our co-chair of the commission, may arrive, and he can join in. So, on our agenda today is basically looking at the mid-year budget and approving expenses for people to go to the NACOLE conference. So we'll start, Director Goodrick, you can walk us through the budget.
All right. So you have in front of you the actuals that were printed off last week. We've had some trouble getting in and out of the financial system since the cyber incident that affected the city of Cleveland all of last week, which was now stated as a ransomware attack. So we still don't have access from this office to any financial information. I had to get this through a second party. It's being managed through a system where they have delegation of a person to manage each department, and we have someone from IT who's our point person trying to get us back up and running as quickly as that can be. So what that means right now is employees are being paid for the email this week, so that's a plus. But with grantee checks, we are having some trouble finding out status of the grantee checks that were supposed to be cut right before the cyber incident. Also, our ability to enter invoices for things that are owed, like rent and the other incidentals around here, are compromised for us right now. So we can't get into the Advantage system from this office. We're trying to come up with a workaround for that. So that's just a quick update.
Just for check writing, you said? Or for what?
For us to enter invoices. So right now what that means is like our rent invoice, we owe some money for the last community event. Those things we are not able to put into the financial system at the moment directly. So we're working with City Hall to figure out a workaround. We can't log in from this location. And apparently one of the lasting problems at City Hall is employees can't use the internet there without, they're just put in Wi-Fi hotspots temporarily. That came out today. So we're trying to figure it out. So right now, if we owe you money and you're watching, I apologize. And we're working with the city to get it to you as fast as possible, including the grantees. So let's talk about how much money we've spent this year already. So this would be the mid-year budget update. As the public knows, this is the committee that has oversight of the budget for the CPC and makes preliminary budget decisions when it reaches a threshold for purchases and other things. Particularly in our rules, it's anything over $10,000 must go through this committee for approval. And just covering the budget, just a quick review of Charter 115.5. We have a minimum appropriation in the ordinance. That's where we've been for the last 2 years. Council and the mayor's office have appropriated the minimum amount under 115.5 for budgetary operations and for the CPC. So in the charter, there's also a provision that says commissioners and executive director may advocate for resources directed to council members or the council during the budget process and throughout the year, which means that if there's anything identified that this committee wants to attempt to go back to council with, we do have the ability to do so under the charter. And the director of finance may also review the budget request for lawfulness and reasonableness and make recommendations for improvements to the draft budget. no person in the executive branch will exercise discretionary authority to make changes to the proposed budget, which the commission does not agree. So those are our general rules under the charter. So let's talk a little bit about what we were appropriated and what we've spent this year. So I don't have every category listed here, but you do have that in front of you, the actual sheet. So that's what looks like this here. So these are just the major categories breakdown. So our total budget allotment for 2024 is $2,214,158. Our actual spend this year, which is mostly out of salary, is $238,656 as we pass the halfway mark here. So that means we have a remaining of $1,975,500. Now, the important thing is we have to subtract grants out of that. So out of that, $1,154,000, or I'm sorry, $1,975,000 that remains. The grants are $1,154,000 of that. So, about half of our budget every year is grants. So that part is reserved specifically for our grant giving program. So really, that leaves us with an operating budget of just over $1 million every year. And out of that, it's important to note that out of that $1,887,000 is just out of payroll expenses. So that's staff and hospitalization and all the benefits, pensions, everything that goes with it. So that doesn't leave us a lot in operations. Our operating budget to do events, hire consultants, all of those things, and to get our work done is this year was approximately $172,156. We've only spent $5,000 of that this year so far on paper, and we have roughly $167,000 remaining. Now we do have a few things, about $8,000. So around $24,000 hasn't hit this budget yet when we printed it last week, and that is for janitorial services and rent. So you will see that operations that available remaining go down. So you could take about $24,000 off of that. But so that gives us roughly $140,000 left in our operating budget to play with as we move in here on the operational side. And on the salary, we have quite a bit remaining, which I'll dive into here. So when we did the budget and we approved it last year through this committee and then subsequently through the commission, I had put some priorities in there, and those are the priorities we went to council with. So we wanted to improve efficiency and monitoring the CPC grant program. We had asked for additional staffing to do that, which was not appropriated at that time. We wanted to fill all staff vacancies. I'll go into that a little more. Continue to invest in training and education for commissioners and staff. Prioritize funding for consent decree compliance projects. We were looking at a new location for CPC offices and increase community engagement and awareness. So those were the budgetary goals that guide this whole thing here that we were appropriated against. Now let's talk about staff. This always comes up here. So this was the budgeted salary amounts for staff in this year. Executive director, $130,000. Assistant director, 90 to 100. Office manager and finance coordinator, 65. Senior policy analyst, 71. Marketing and communication specialist, 70. Community engagement coordinator, between 50 and 65,000. And then our assistant director of law is a cost share with the Department of Law, and we carry about our half obligation of that is $46,000, and that doesn't include hospitalization. This is just base salaries here. So no, it's the hospitalization is a whole separate category. And we have about around a 50% fringe rate. So if you want to know the full cost, it shows it in here. Hospitalization is another huge chunk of money, but I don't go into that because we don't have control over the setting of that or anything. So those are just calculated by the city as necessary, depending on our complement.
The community engagement coordinator said it's filled here.
So it was filled. Yes, I didn't. That slide I just forgot to change. It's vacant right now. So yes. So we'll talk about the vacancies that I have control over right now. Senior Community Communications and Engagement Specialist became vacant last year. That's a project coordinator. We went through a whole process to interview people, and the committee at the time was myself, Commissioner Zayed, and Martin Belot was in the second round, and Shelley Williams was in the first round. And we decided that we didn't have a candidate that we thought was a good fit in our first go round. So we reposted the job for 30 days, and we did interviews again with myself. I was bringing one commissioner, Commissioner Zayed, and our new staff member, Martin Belot. We made an offer to somebody. That offer had to be rescinded based on an application problem.
They were talking about
for the Senior Communications and Engagement Specialist. So then now we made a second offer right before the cyber incident, and that offer was accepted. However, with logistics of the incident, we are not able to move that forward at this time, and we have no timeline on when they'll be able to help us to advance that employee offer. So we are kind of a little stuck there right now. But they are happily awaiting information, and I think this one will go through because all the paperwork's filled out. We just need to know when they can be up and running, process it. So the other posting we have available, which we just set up a committee for, the committee will be, and this job's been up for about 45 days, is our community engagement coordinator. The committee will be myself, Janina Thomas, and then as a commissioner, Commissioner Reeves agreed to do this one as a representative. He wanted to get more involved. He reached out to me, so I offered him the ability to jump in on this. This one, this is our the former position held by Shelley Williams. We have over 100 applicants for this position. I have never had more applicants for a job here. So that's really good for us. And it provides us some opportunity here. So if we go back a couple slides, because of our vacancies here, in our full-time permanent right now, because we don't have the settled position of executive director yet, I'm not being paid on the executive director scale at the moment. I'm being paid at my old rate. We have about $30,000 there difference for the year. We also have the entire $100,000 from the second position, which would also be, either way you dice it, in the leadership, the top two spots, you have about $130,000 there of unspent funding this year. And then because we had two half vacancies from two project coordinator positions, we're looking at roughly, $75,000 there. So the idea that came up with is to take this position, and I've already started discussing with the city right now, and we hire one FTE because we're fully budgeted for that. We can sustain it, but we can also attempt to use what remaining money we have creatively through the end of the year. And so I'm hoping, because we have so many applicants, that we can find a way to also bring in two community engagement coordinators who are as needed, so that we can get out to more events for the second half of the year. And they'll be unbenefited staff positions. They'll be as needed. But I'm hoping the city's having a discussion now to see if they can, if I could get this approved, to be able to deploy those. So we would take them from the same 100 applicant pools. One person would get the full-time job, and then we would be able to have two other people that we like, if they were agreeable to it, come on as basically what would be akin to PRN employees. And we can use them as much as needed this remaining year to get out to more community events, to be where we need to be, to do a little more promotion. We are the community engagement community police commission, and right now we're vacant in our spots to get out there, and everyone on the commission and staff is so reactive with the work at the moment that we're missing opportunities to be able to do the engagement. So that is one of the ways that we can creatively use the remaining money that would need to go through this committee. If you agreed, we could send that proposal forward on Wednesday.
You said some PRN, what's that mean?
As needed. So that's
PRN.
that's just a terminology like from the medical profession that sticks in my head. It's shorthand for as needed. So That's the plan for that. And then operational amplification. So we did our framework, we approved our framework, and in that framework, our goal was to get ourselves closer to consent decree compliance so that when they evaluate us in what would be the equivalent of March of next year, March of 2025, we would have most, because it's always a look back to the previous 6 months. That means through December of this year, we would have become generally compliant or operationally compliant in most of our consent decree paragraphs. That's in our framework to do. Two of the key projects in that were going to be led by committee were bias-free policing. So looking at bias-free policing policy, looking at the recruitment areas of bias-free, and then also the training. That is currently going to be run through the training committee. And then also another key element that we need to accomplish sometime as the commission to be consent decree compliant is called the community engagement assessment. And what that means is coming up with a way to assess the Cleveland Division of Police's community engagement and how effective it's been during the consent decree, right? Both of those two projects are labor intensive. Because we didn't start them on time, which would have been this quarter or last quarter, my proposal now is to take our remaining operational funding that's unallocated, move it around as much as we can, send most of it to outside professional services, and then get through 2 RFPs in the next 45 days or so, if that's possible, to get us to amplify our workforce to be able to get these 2 projects started and moving. So each one of these RFPs will definitely be over $10,000. So that's why I'm asking you guys to consider this today. We don't have the exact figure yet, but we will get that once you approve it, knowing that it'll be over $10,000. We'll disseminate these to the appropriate committee. The chair of training, Commissioner Donaldson, has already tentatively accepted this idea of doing the bias-free policing RFQ. We have plenty of community members who are proficient in this. Doing an RFQ or an RFP does not mean that we will exclude the community. What it means is we'll bring in professionals in this area to help us expedite being able to bring in the community's voice into this, and then mix it with their expertise to help us come to recommendations faster on these.
So you're looking at expertise and experience both in community engagement as well as bias-free policing,
Right.
and an assessment of the division's engagement.
Right. And so with the assessment one particularly, we can't be at all the CDP community engagement events, right? We also don't have the ability to quickly follow up with attendees at those events, ask them how they felt about it, right? See if those things are getting the return on investment that they're supposed to in the consent decree. So for this one, when you look at the labor intensity of it and the analyzation component of that data that we get, we're definitely going to need someone to get out there just to amplify us. So those are the 2 major projects that I would suggest to help us, because we have the funding to do it, as quickly as possible. It's not from lack of trying. I want to put that out there too. I believe this commission is working its tail off to hit its objectives, in the framework as they had hoped. What happens along the way is we become extremely reactive to the world around us, and we have been hit with a tremendous amount of policy work and other things that are part of what we do as well, and also looking at the hearings and being a little short-staffed. We just didn't hit our goals in the time we wanted. So, the best thing you can do then is just look at where you're at versus where you want to be and just change your plan a little bit. So, it's not saying that you're not capable of doing this work. All you're saying is that you want to do it on a timeline. So the best interest to this commission would be to use the resource that we have, some available funding, to help you hit that timeline, right? It's not a knock on your knowledge or expertise. It's just saying, with what we have right now, if we want to hit that timeline, we just need a little more resources to do it. So, all right. So that's my overview. If there's any questions about any of these particular line items, I'm open to it now. But if you have no particular questions about the budget so far, then what I would ask is that you, as a courtesy motion, this plan forward to both amplify the staff and to look at those RFQs, so that I can get to work on moving that forward once it's approved by the full commission next week, if approved. Any questions?
So I guess one thing is like, we don't really know when we can get these RFPs out, since with the cyber issue continuing to slow things down.
So
right?
I don't think it should slow it down because these aren't very cyber intensive. So now that Martin is a wizard in RFPs, and he has dramatically cut down our time for that process. He's very familiar with it. It does have to be drafted and go before 2 boards, but he was able to do that really efficiently last time. So the main thing would be, once you approve this, defining the project a little more through whatever committee it's assigned to. And I'm looking at you, Commissioner Kennedy, because you are pretty much the entire outreach committee now. And I think that the community engagement assessment was slated under that. So this would be something that if we don't have any other people interested in it, that you can work with Martin and I to craft, and we can just get it out once it's approved.
I'd be happy to.
Okay. And the other one, same thing. I think it would be a matter of sitting. You've already been through the process, Commissioner Van Leer, through budgets and grants with this last RFQ. So you know how it works. That it would be the training committee chair, once this is approved, sitting down, giving us the criteria. We put it in there. It's done in Word, so it doesn't have to be online or approved online. It can then be transmitted to those boards for review and approval without needing to worry about the cyber problems. I think it can all be done manually and still move forward, provided they're meeting and they're not disrupted in other ways. So I think we can get them out and under contract before our funding ends. And this is something that we've already preliminarily discussed in the leadership, and I think, and I can't speak for the co-chairs, but since one of them's here, they could speak. I think this is an idea that's endorsed by the co-chairs.
Yeah, we talked about it. I agree. I think that we're going to have these funds. They're available. We don't really have plans to use them. So I think we should just, particularly with the community piece, with knowing that we're having some issues with the outreach community, that seems to be a smart thing to do to get ourselves back out there. Because I know that, we've been we're trying to keep up with these meetings, but there's just a lot of meetings, and there's a lot of meetings that we're still not getting to. So I think that would be a good way to get ourselves back into the community.
So in terms of, so basically, how long would you see those? I mean, I know it's not written yet, but how long would you see those positions, those 2 positions as being lasting? Would it be the 6 months less?
So yeah, until the end of the year, and then what we would do is, with all our positions filled, all our full-time positions, if they were filled all year, we wouldn't have extra funding. We would have to go ask for more funding to supplement that. But because we have extra to draw from, it's possible to utilize that in the way that we're doing it most likely. However, at the end of the year, if all those positions are filled and we have the executive director question answered, right, then we are going to be at full salary capacity. So the only way to keep extra help at that point would be to ask for additional funding to do that. But right now, if we were to bring those extra people in, it would be the understanding that it's only for a time period through the end of the year that they would have this opportunity to help us, unless it was reappropriated through the whole budgetary process. And we're going to be moving into that in a few months, where we start crafting our 2025 budget, so we can talk more about staffing at that point of how we'll handle it next year. But for right now, I think we can draw from our staff funding to have those temporary positions on the books for at least through the end of the year.
And there's no question about, I mean, if we don't spend that money, it's just, we won't spend the money.
Just goes back to general fund, yes. And last year we gave money back to general fund, because we had vacancies last year as well. So, but that was primarily just from the 2 leadership positions, and then a couple of months from the assistant administrator, which Janita filled. So. And I think, if I'm being optimistic, we can be by August, around this time in August, we could possibly have these RFQs done and ready to go to contract. So then we could actually start these projects in the last quarter of the year.
When you said done, you mean actually filled?
Under selected, under contract, the funding appropriated. And even if the project's going to next year, that's okay. The main thing is to get that money procured from this year's budget and associated with a contract. Then it can be spent into next year.
Okay.
Any additional questions there?
Okay, so this would be, you just put this into a proposal.
So
and
you
this is
just-
essentially.
Just
Okay.
make it,
Yeah, make a
the
motion to-
easiest way to do it would be just to quickly motion the plan to amplify staffing and
So that's really the
RFQs.
only, what are the motions we need to make? Do we need to accept this budget? Or-
Well, it would be to accept the plan to reappropriate the funding, right?
Yeah,
So
I
we're
understand that, but I mean, often, do we need to present this, the full budget it's not really a vote on the budget itself, it's more just those two.
it's a reallocation of our current year's budget to amplify our staffing and to increase our outside professional
The rest of
services.
it is just updates.
Right.
Okay, well, I make a motion that we move forward with the 2 RFPs.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Okay.
So let me take a quick look here at the where we're at with contracts. And see who is, how many completions we have here.
With the grant up, yeah, that's actually, yeah,
Uh,
just be part of this review, I guess, that I was gonna ask about that.
Yeah.
Grantee update, and you said it slowed down by the,
And it was, so we
Cyber
couldn't
incident.
access the cyber, so I'm just trying to, rush through this right now because Janita was just able to update it
yeah, saw that.
right now in real time. So I just want to take a quick look here at how many are,
You both got it, I emailed you.
yeah. Who still is having problems. So I know checks have been moving here. So we have 1 issuance of checks, 2, 3, 4. Okay. So at least 4 people have received their first reimbursement. But if you see here under CCR, in the line item CCR, why isn't that broadcast? Let me turn this off here.
Yeah, I'm looking at this file, it's like, so what does colors mean?
So the color coding here, if it's got a checkbox in the front here, so if it doesn't, it's by category mostly, that's Janita's color coding, it's not mine, so that's for her to be able to keep track. But what's important is if you see CCR, if it says yes, that means that they're moving forward in the system and they're getting under contract. because that means once you're in as the, oh, here, let me forward that to you.
Yeah, this was sent by
Because you
email.
weren't here. Oh, yeah, you're on it.
Yeah, you're on it.
You're just,
You got an email from Janita.
so if it has a CCR and a vendor number, that's a good thing. That means that their contract's been processed and they're getting set up to be able to move forward to get their funding. So I think there are a few that are not there.
The Love Train is not.
Yeah.
That looks like the only one.
But for the most part, most of these have been moving forward with their contracts. So you can see.
And then there are a few, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like a handful that have had checks.
Yeah. So there were 4 that got checked so far by my read here, 4 or 5, yeah. So they are moving forward. It's been a long, challenging process. And one thing I didn't say is right after we got finished last year, the whole kit and caboodle, once we approved these, we then also became a department, which is what's supposed to happen, right? So we are now officially Department 0122, the Community Police Commission, which was set up early this year, right? It's a good thing because that's the way it needed to be. However, that means Janita and myself are the only people who can get into the Advantage system to enter things for us, to process invoices and things like that. We had a learning curve. So there was also a few months of her learning how to go through it, going to City Hall, being trained on this stuff before we were up and running and entering. So now that we're doing that efficiently, we still only have one person. And I got to say, all of this stuff is moving forward because of 2 people, Martin and Janita. And so, I know it's been frustrating for grantees, but there have been a lot of challenges and roadblocks to get here, and the checks are finally moving. And everybody who was promised that money, if they fulfilled it and made it to contract, they are going to get their money. It's disappointing that we weren't able to do it as quickly as we hoped, but I don't think anybody from the framers of 115.5 to myself to the co-chairs or the Budget and Grants Committee when they first did this understood the logistical, how much manpower and energy that's required just to get this money out the door. So that is why we ended up with the RFQ that is posted on our website now and closes today for, if people don't know about it, I'll say it one last time, and you only have till 11:59 today to submit, but we're looking for outside assistance in helping to administer these grants, and that's on our website. So take a look at that. If you have any questions, Janita is the person to answer if you're interested in the status of any particular
Can I ask what
grantee.
submitted advance payments?
Submitted advance pay. So which one are you particularly looking at?
There's a couple, there's one in row 25.
Row
one in
25.
27.
Yeah, I mean, they can't do the reimbursement, so they have to get some of them in advance
Yeah.
to get their work started.
Okay.
Yeah. So we had the hardship grant, which is what most people requested. That was another thing, is people didn't initially understand the contract. So a lot of these we got almost done, and then they said, you know what, we don't have the operating cash to do the reimbursement method. They didn't figure that out until they read the contract. So then we had to start over. They had to redo their budgets for what we call disbursement grant and a hardship grant. That's where we give them money in advance based on, it's usually cut into 4 quarters of their grant. In order to advance past the first quarter, you have to then be audited on your expenses that you were originally dispersed. So the city's not used to doing that. It took us a while to figure out how to get it done, but most people have that. So the ones who do not, there are some that are more traditional where they have to spend first and then submit their request for reimbursement, and we audit it and then send the money.
Okay.
So those are the two different versions there. All right. So the last thing here that I have for you is the NACOLE annual conference.
Oh, wait, one,
Well,
yeah, you already said this, but have we gotten any, you said the RFP right now is for the grants management, that's out, deadline tonight. Have we gotten any?
so far we have not received any applicants for any of our stuff, but that's not unusual. A lot of times you'll
Yeah.
see it like 2 minutes before close, they'll all come in.
Yeah.
So, this one is a particularly complex one. We did have at least one organization attend the pre-conference bid. They seem very interested, so I'm hoping you'll get at least one. And the process is, if you don't get any for some reason, you're then allowed to shop it. So it'll come back with the commissioner of purchasing will say no proposals were received. They'll confirm that, and then that gives you the right to go directly engage with organizations and see if you can get somebody to agree to want to do this work and work out the terms. So, and that holds true for our community survey RFQ 2. Commissioner Kennedy, so far we have had no responses, but that one has more days left. I think it closed on the 20th. But if we don't get any, then we can directly approach vendors and have that conversation.
Okay.
So, okay, can we move on to NACOLE, Chair?
Yes.
Okay, so you also have before you, the NACOLE conference is this year. It's October 13th through the 17th in Tucson, Arizona. Tucson is one of the premium travel cities according to the government, so it's on the higher spectrum of cost to go there, and so it brings up incidentals, everything a little bit. But we did Chicago last year; it's the same tier as that. So we have 9 commissioners interested, and one who told me today, Commissioner Rodriguez, that she would like to be considered an alternate. So the list is Adams, Benito, Chura, Burley, Garrett Ferguson, Van Leer, Ridgway, Wong, and Zayed, with Rodriguez as an alternate. And then for staff, I approved Brian Walker to go, and I sent a request to the co-chairs for myself. So the estimated cost breakdown is, this is just an estimate. The way the travel process goes is we have to create an estimate, and then we submit that estimate. It's usually pretty close. So it's an estimated cost of $2,551 per attendee. If we were to send everyone on this list, including Adriana, we would be at $30,612, which is just about what we did last year. And we currently have available this year $43,997 out of travel and training, so we can definitely cover that.
Can I ask what the allowable expenses are for travel and tuition funding in general beyond the example of the NACOLE conference?
So conferences are not just NACOLE, so commissioners really haven't had this discussion amongst themselves, but any commissioner can find a conference in the United States that they think would be appropriate, right? For them, they would be requesting for the other commissioners to approve it, right?
Right.
So that wouldn't go, I could help get a cost and all that stuff through my office, but if you saw something that you felt would be good, would benefit the commission in whatever role you have, you would simply, type up a proposal to the commission. They would vote to accept you to go. That's how my understanding of how it would work with that. Staff, it's the same. If a staff member approached me and said, hey, I want to go to this conference, and it's not NACOLE, same thing. They would do it. They would go through me. I would approve it. But with the exception, because we all draw from that same amount, I would bring that, even though it's under 10,000, I would have to bring it here for a compromise if somebody asked outside of NACOLE and staff, so.
And-
Training locally, you can, same thing. If you see a class or something that interests you, most often it's commissioners saying, hey, can you register me for this webinar, this NACOLE webinar? I think we did another webinar on surveillance technology one time. So commissioners periodically will say, hey, and it's $50 registration fee, it just comes out of that pot.
So it's really professional development.
Yes, it is.
Okay, it's just, it's labeled a different way, but.
And I guess I'm long-winded, I could have probably said that.
No, that's just, but I wasn't sure, wasn't familiar with the specific parameters to what the money can be spent on. So that's very good to know. So, if all of these people go, including Adriana, who's volunteered as the alternate, there's still almost $14,000 left in the account.
Yes,
It's very good to know.
and remember, I didn't say this, but I think I've said it at other meetings. So everything that's in payroll, right, the staff and the benefits is stuck there.
Mhm.
Everything in operations, we can move around. So that 14,000 can be, if we found 10,000 from another place, we can amplify it. So you can move any line item in operations around depending on what we want to do with that money. So it's really just one big pot that's generally divided up on what we agreed to do with it, but we can move money around.
That's
So,
all.
yeah.
Thank you.
So this, keeping in last year's tradition, we voted on this in budget and grants and advanced it to the full commission. And it can be, there is some time for people to change. That's why I'm saying let's just go the more liberal way and include the alternate in the cost, because we can always dial it back. So it would just require a motion to move forward with the proposed attendee list and,
Motion to move the proposed NACOLE budget forward with the attendee list attached.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye.
great, thank you. That's all I have, and we'll get that, once it passes, we'll start moving that forward, getting people reserved for that conference.
Cool. Thank you.
That's all I have. If there's any questions?
We do want to look at our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, July 8th. Currently at 6 p.m.
Does it have to be?
No, that's my question. Does it have to be
Great,
at
if we
6?
could move it up, that would be fabulous.
That'd be fine with me. Do you want to do in the afternoon? What
Yeah,
actually?
like if early afternoon, like today, like 2, 3, 4
That's fine.
works, any of those times would be great.
Yeah, I have something scheduled at 3:40. I'm not sure we'll have.
Well,
What do we anticipate on our schedule?
what you anticipate is being able to vote your grant
Management.
management RFQ. If you receive more than one proposal, you'll have to work with Martin relatively quickly to evaluate those between now and the 8th. But I suggest that we do that. The 8th is extremely important to move it forward. And then we may I don't even want to wait till the 24th. So just a hypothetical timeline, should you make your selection, pass it here on the 8th, I would ask the co-chairs to do a special commission meeting to move that forward, because it's so important that we can't lose those 2.5 weeks before our full commission meeting and wait for them to advance it. So we would need a special meeting that week as well. So.
Okay, so why don't we move that meeting to 2 o'clock on the 8th? If that's good. That would work for me as long as it's not too long of a meeting, because I have a thing in the afternoon a little bit later. But the question then, we just need to be really focused, in communication, because if, say, we get 1 or 2 people or however many groups do submit, we should really start moving that. And I wonder if it seems unlikely we could do it before the next full meeting, but
Well,
we
what
should
I
keep
would
that in mind.
what I would say now is, if you have a score sheet now, so work with Martin to get a score sheet done. Because that way, if you get more than one, you can you have your competitive scoring process there. But if you don't have a score sheet, you just need Martin to quickly approve one for you. Shouldn't be hard. You just take whatever the criteria is, and I can help with that if you need it. But I would say, between now and tomorrow, if you can have a score sheet done, that way, if you do receive one tonight, you'll be ready to, or more than one tonight, you'll be ready to do that scoring process.
Okay, so we'll be in touch. We'll just have to keep in touch on that. So I'll send an email out shortly.
And I think the 3 scorers are sitting at this table, right?
Okay, with that, got the meeting and the process going. Yeah, so we're good. This meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Get the email out. We're gonna send an email out right away.
If we're gonna do that on the 8th, should we